The stars looked different from the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel. Jin pressed his hand against the cold glass and watched the swirling colors of hyperspace rush past. In 3 hours, he would arrive at the border of space. In 4 hours, he might be dead. The other diplomats had refused this mission. Every single one of them had found an excuse when the Galactic Assembly put out the call. Some claimed scheduling conflicts. Others suddenly discovered medical issues. Ambassador had been honest enough to say what everyone else was thinking. I'm not going to negotiate with monsters. But Jin had volunteered immediately. His supervisor had stared at him like he had lost his mind. Maybe he had. It wouldn't be the first time someone had suggested it. The communication panel beeped. Jin walked over and pressed the button. A blue-skinned appeared on the screen, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Envoy Jin, we are approaching the border. Are you certain you wish to proceed? We can still turn back. Jin smiled. I'm certain, Captain, thank you. You humans are either very brave or very foolish. The captain's voice held something between respect and concern. They have destroyed every ship that has crossed their border in the last 50 years. Then maybe it's time someone tried a different approach. The captain made a clicking sound that might have been laughter or disapproval. The screen went dark. Jin returned to the window and waited. The Empire had been part of galactic legend long before humanity discovered faster-than-light travel. Stories spoke of a nightmare species that lived in the dark regions of space. Creatures with too many limbs and eyes that glowed in the darkness. Monsters that would tear apart anyone who came near their territory. But Jin had learned something important during his years as a rescue worker back on Earth. The things people feared most were usually the things they didn't understand, and the beings others called monsters were often just people who looked different. The ship lurched suddenly. Warning lights flashed across every panel. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. We're caught in a tractor beam. Unknown origin. Envoy Jin, please proceed to the escape pod immediately. No, Jin kept his voice calm. This is first contact, I'm staying. You'll die. Maybe, but I came here to meet them, not run away. The ship shuddered as the tractor beam pulled them forward. Through the window, Jin saw a massive station materialize out of the darkness. It was beautiful in a way he hadn't expected. Spiraling towers covered in lights that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. Organic curves instead of the hard angles humanity preferred. It looked like a living thing. The docking procedure was rough. The ship's hull groaned as magnetic clamps locked into place. Jin gathered his small bag of belongings and walked to the airlock. His hands were steady. That surprised him a little. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Jin stepped through into a corridor that curved away in both directions. The walls were dark but lined with the same pulsing lights he had seen on the exterior. They cast everything in shades of blue and violet. A figure waited at the end of the corridor. Jin walked forward slowly, keeping his hands visible and empty. As he got closer, he could make out details. The being stood on 4 legs with 2 upper limbs crossed over its chest. Its body was covered in dark plating that reflected the corridor lights. Multiple sensory stalks emerged from its head, each tipped with an organ that might have been an eye. As Jin approached, lights beneath the plating began to glow a deep red color. The being spoke. The words were musical but completely unfamiliar. A small device on its chest crackled to life with a mechanical translation. Human, you are either very foolish or very desperate. Which is it? Neither, Jin said. I'm just someone who wanted to meet you. The being's lights flickered to orange. The translator continued. You wanted to meet the monsters of space. You wanted to see the nightmare species that frightens children across the galaxy. I wanted to meet the people everyone else was too afraid to talk to. The lights shifted again, this time to a color between yellow and green. The being's head tilted to one side in what might have been confusion. I have been assigned to escort you to the Queen. If you show fear or aggression, you will be destroyed immediately. Do you understand? I understand, thank you. Do not thank me. I am only following orders. I believe this is a waste of time. You will be like all the others. Turned and began walking down the corridor. Jin followed. The station was larger than he had imagined. They passed through chambers filled with others going about their daily lives. Some were larger than, others smaller. All of them stopped to stare at the human walking among them. Their body lights shifted to various shades of blue and red as he passed. Jin tried not to stare back, but it was difficult. Each was unique. Some had elaborate patterns etched into their plating. Others wore decorative pieces that chimed softly as they moved. Children, smaller and lighter in color, peeked out from behind adults before scurrying away. They didn't look like monsters to him. They looked like people. The corridor opened into an enormous chamber. The ceiling disappeared into darkness far above. The walls were covered in what Jin realized were artworks, delicate sculptures that seemed to float in place, murals that glowed with internal light. Music played softly from somewhere, complex harmonies that made something in his chest ache. At the far end of the chamber sat a massive throne, and on that throne, hidden behind layers of translucent veils, sat a figure larger than any he had seen so far. Stopped at the base of a long ramp leading up to the throne, she gestured for Jin to continue alone. He walked forward slowly. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. As he climbed the ramp, he could see shapes moving behind the veils. The figure on the throne was massive, easily 8 feet tall even while seated. A voice spoke, deep and resonant, translated by speakers built into the throne itself. So humanity sends one man to face the empire. Are you a gift, a sacrifice, or simply a fool? Jin stopped at the top of the ramp. He could see the outline of the queen through the veils, but no details, just size and shadow. I'm just someone who wanted to understand, he said. The galaxy is full of fear about your people, but fear usually comes from not knowing someone. I thought maybe if one person tried to actually meet you to talk with you, things might be different. Silence filled the chamber. Jin could hear his own heartbeat. Finally, the queen spoke again. You have 3 days, human. 3 days to prove that humanity is different from the species that call us demons. 3 days to show me that you are not like all the others who see us and feel only disgust and terror. And if I fail, then humanity will join the list of species forbidden from ever entering our space again. The borders will close forever. Jin nodded slowly. And if I succeed? Behind the veils, something moved. The lights in the chamber seemed to dim slightly. If you succeed, the queen said quietly, then perhaps we will finally know what it feels like to not be alone in the darkness. Appeared at Jin's elbow. Her lights had shifted to a deep purple color. The translator on her chest remained silent, but she gestured toward a side exit. As Jin followed her out of the throne room, he looked back once. The veils still hid the queen completely, but he could see lights glowing behind the fabric, deep blue like the ocean at midnight. The color, he would learn later, meant sadness mixed with hope. The color of someone who had learned to expect disappointment but couldn't quite stop wishing for something different. 3 days to change everything. 3 days to prove that not all the galaxy saw them as monsters. Jin had handled worse odds before, though usually not with the fate of an entire species resting on his shoulders. He followed into the corridor, and the throne room doors closed behind them with a sound like a sigh. Morning came differently in space. There was no sun to rise, only the station's lights gradually brightening from deep blue to softer violet. Jin woke in his assigned quarters, a small room with curved walls and a sleeping platform that had adjusted itself to his body's shape during the night. Arrived precisely at what is said was 800 station time. Her body lights glowed a neutral yellow-green color. I will show you our city, she announced through her translator. The Queen has ordered that you be given access to all public spaces. This is highly unusual." "I appreciate it," Jin said. He grabbed a small bag with water and a recording device. "I'm ready." "You should be afraid." Lights flickered to orange. "Most species cannot stand to look at us for more than a few minutes. The biological response is too strong. You will feel fear and disgust even if you do not wish to." "Maybe I will," Jin agreed, "but I'd like to try anyway." They left his quarters and entered the main city level of the station. Jin stopped in the doorway, overwhelmed by what he saw. The space was enormous. Buildings rose in spiral patterns, connected by bridges that seemed to float without support. Gardens grew everywhere, but the plants were unlike anything on Earth. They glowed with bioluminescence, creating patches of light in dozens of colors. Water flowed through channels in the walls, the sound creating a constant gentle music. And everywhere there were. They moved through the streets in groups and alone. Some carried bags of goods from market stalls. Others sat in what looked like cafes, their body lights pulsing in patterns as they communicated. Children played in designated areas, their smaller forms darting between structures while adults watched over them. "Your people built all this?" Jin asked. "Our people have lived here for 3,000 years, said. Her tone was defensive. "We have art, music, philosophy, science. We are not the primitive monsters your galaxy believes us to be." "I can see that." They walked deeper into the city, seemed to be testing him, taking him to increasingly crowded areas, stopped and stared as they passed. Some of their body lights turned red or blue, colors Jin was starting to recognize as alarm or fear. A few moved their children behind them protectively. He understood. To them, he was the alien. He was the strange creature that didn't belong. At a market square, stopped at a stall selling what appeared to be food. The vendor was an older with deep scars across his plating and several broken sensory stalks that had healed at odd angles. "This is," said. "He operates the most popular food establishment in this sector. This is the human the Queen is testing." Lights shifted through several colors before settling on yellow. He spoke directly, and the translator converted his words. "A human, I have never seen one in person. You are very small and soft. Where is your proper plating?" "Humans don't have external armor," Jin explained. "Our skin is soft, yes. It makes us vulnerable but also very sensitive. We can feel things more easily." Strange leaned forward, his multiple eyes focusing on Jin from different angles. "Are you frightened of me, human? I know what your species says about us. Monster, nightmare, demon." Jin met his gaze steadily. "You look like someone who has lived a long life and has stories to tell. I'm not frightened." Lights flickered through several colors rapidly. Then he reached under his stall and pulled out a small bowl filled with something that looked like glowing fruit. "Here, this is fruit, very popular with young, try it." Jin took the bowl carefully. The fruit was warm to the touch and pulsed with a gentle pink light. He picked up one piece and bit into it. The flavor was sweet and complex, with a slight fizzing sensation on his tongue. "It's delicious," he said honestly. Lights turned bright gold. Around them, others had stopped to watch. Some of their lights began shifting toward warmer colors. "He eats our food," someone said, "without hesitation." "He does not recoil from scars," another voice added. Lights had turned an interesting shade of purple. She pulled Jin away from the stall, moving quickly through the crowd. "You should not have done that," she said. "Done what?" "Tried the fruit. It was good." "You treated like a person, like an equal. Most aliens will not even approach our markets. They send drones to purchase goods because they cannot bear to interact with us directly." They walked in silence for a while, led him through art galleries where artists created sculptures that gravity. They visited a school where young learned mathematics and history. They stopped at a memorial garden where names were etched into walls of dark stone, glowing softly in the dim light. "These are the ones we lost," said quietly. "When we first made contact with the greater galaxy, we were excited. We thought we would finally have friends, allies, trading partners. Instead, they took one look at us and opened fire." Jin read the names, thousands of them. He felt something heavy settle in his chest. "For 200 years we tried to make peace. We sent delegations, we offered gifts, we opened our borders." His lights had turned deep blue. Every time the same response: disgust, fear, violence. "Eventually we closed ourselves off. Better to be alone than to constantly face rejection and hatred." "I'm sorry," Jin said. "I'm sorry that happened to your people." "Your sorrow changes nothing." "Maybe not, but I mean it anyway." They continued walking. Late in the day brought him to a public gathering space where had assembled for some kind of performance. Musicians played instruments that Jin had never seen before. The sounds they created were hauntingly beautiful, harmonies that seemed to resonate in his bones. Moved in patterns that might have been dancing. Their body lights pulsed in coordination with the music, creating waves of color that flowed through the crowd. It was mesmerizing. Jin found himself swaying slightly to the rhythm. Next to him had gone very still. "You hear the music?" she asked. "Of course, it's beautiful. Most species cannot process our musical frequencies correctly. To them, it sounds like noise, painful noise. Then most species are missing something incredible." That evening brought him back to his quarters. Before she left, she turned to face him directly. "Tomorrow we will visit the royal archives and the meditation gardens. These are sacred spaces. Few outsiders have ever been permitted to enter them. The Queen has granted you access." "Why?" Jin asked. "Why is she allowing this?" Lights shifted through several colors, finally settling on something between green and blue. "The Queen is testing you, yes. But I think perhaps she is also testing herself. Testing whether it is possible to be seen without being feared. She has lived for 130 years human. For most of that time, she has been called monster, demon, nightmare. She has worn veils and hidden herself because her appearance causes even her own people to feel uncomfortable." "Her own people?" "The Queen is large, even for our species. She bears the scars of many battles. Her crown of sensory horns is the most elaborate ever recorded. She is different, even among those who are different. And difference, as you surely know, often leads to isolation." Paused at the door. "I did not think any human could last 3 hours among us without showing fear. You have lasted an entire day. I do not understand you, Jin. But perhaps that is because I have spent too long expecting the worst from others." After she left, Jin sat in his room and reviewed the recordings he had made. Art, music, children playing games that looked surprisingly similar to games human children played, elders sharing stories in cafes, couples with their body lights synchronized as they walked together. A civilization, not monsters, people. And somewhere in this city, hidden behind veils, sat a queen who had spent her entire life being told she was too frightening to look at. A ruler who had given up hope that anyone would ever see her as anything other than a nightmare. Jin thought about the 3-day deadline. He had 2 days left to prove humanity was different. But the truth was, he wasn't trying to prove anything. He was simply allowing himself to see what had been there all along. A people who had been judged for their appearance and found wanting by a galaxy too frightened to look deeper. His communicator beeped. A message from the Queen, translated into human text. "Tomorrow you will see the heart of our culture, the places we hold most sacred. If you can walk through them without fear, perhaps there is hope. But I warn you, human, I will remove my veil eventually. And when I do, you will understand why even my own people struggle to meet my gaze. Prepare yourself." Jin read the message twice, then set down his device. Through his window, he could see the city lights pulsing in the darkness. Millions of living their lives, creating beauty, raising families, dreaming dreams. Tomorrow he would see their queen. Tomorrow he would face the test that everyone expected him to fail. He wasn't afraid. He was curious. The throne room was filled with witnesses. Nobility lined the walls, their body lights creating a spectrum of colors in the darkness. Jin could see camera drones hovering near the ceiling, recording everything. This moment would be broadcast across space and transmitted to the Galactic Assembly. Everyone would watch him fail. That's what they expected. Stood beside him at the base of the long ramp leading to the throne. Her lights were deep purple, a color he had learned meant worry mixed with sadness. "You do not have to do this," she said quietly. "The Queen has agreed to negotiate through the veils. You have proven more than any other species has. That is enough." "It's not enough," Jin said. "How can I say I came here to understand if I'm not willing to actually see? Seeing her will change you. The biological response is not something you can control. Your body will react with fear and revulsion even if your mind does not wish it to. Then I'll deal with that when it happens." A deep sound echoed through the chamber, like a bell struck underwater. The conversations around them stopped. Every in the room turned toward the throne. The Queen's voice filled the space, translated through speakers that made it sound like distant thunder. 3 days ago, a human came to our borders. I gave him 3 days to prove his species was different from all the others. 3 days to show that he could look upon us without fear or hatred. Jin felt every eye in the room focus on him. This human has walked our streets. He has eaten our food. He has listened to our music and viewed our art. He has asked questions about our culture, our history, our dreams. He has not flinched. He has not recoiled. He has not shown disgust. The Queen paused. Jin could see movement behind the veils. But there is one final test. Throughout history, other species have sent ambassadors who could tolerate brief exposure to common, but they could not tolerate me. I am too large, too different. Even among my own people, I inspire discomfort. This is why I wear these veils. This is why I hide. The chamber was silent, except for the gentle hum of the station systems. Today, I will remove my veils. If the human shows fear or disgust, it will prove what we have always known, that we are monsters, that isolation is our only option, that we will forever be alone. "Your Majesty," Jin called out. His voice sounded small in the vast space. "May I approach?" Another long silence. Then, "You may." Jin began climbing the ramp. Each step echoed. Halfway up, he could feel his heart pounding, not from fear of what he would see, but from the weight of what this moment meant. At the top of the ramp, he stood just a few feet from the veiled throne. Up close, he could see the veils were made of some material that shimmered with internal light, beautiful, even as they concealed. "I am going to remove the first veil," the Queen said. "This is your last chance to turn away." "I'm not turning away." The outermost veil dissolved. It simply faded from existence, like mist in sunlight. Jin could see more details now. The massive shape on the throne, the shadows of sensory stalks moving slowly. Second veil. Another layer disappeared. Now he could see the deep scars across dark plating, the size of her, easily twice as large as any other he had met. The elaborate crown of sensory horns that spread from her head in complex patterns, some broken and. Third veil, last chance human. "I'm ready." The final veil faded away. Queen sat before him in full view. She was massive, her body covered in midnight blue plating marked with pale scars that told stories of battles and survival. Her crown of sensory horns was incredible, spreading like branches of some ancient tree. Some were broken and had healed at angles. Others were decorated with precious metals that caught the light. Her multiple eyes were different sizes, and one was clouded with old damage. Her mandibles bore intricate tattoos in silver that marked her royal status. The lights beneath her plating pulsed deep blue. the color of fear and expectation of pain. She stared at Jin, waiting for the flinch, the step backward, the look of horror that would prove everything she believed about herself. Jin stood very still. He let his eyes adjust to what he was seeing. He took in every detail without looking away. Then he moved forward, climbing the last few steps to stand directly before her throne. He looked up at her without fear, without hesitation. "Your Majesty," he said clearly, "they told me you were hideous. They told me to prepare myself for something terrible." Queen's lights flickered. Her voice came out rough, bypassing the translator. "Do not mock me with false kindness, human. I have mirrors. I know what I am." "You know what others have told you that you are," Jin corrected gently. "But I see something different." "What could you possibly see?" The Queen's voice held decades of pain. "I am too large, too. My crown is broken in places. One of my eyes barely functions. Even among my own people, parents tell their children not to stare at me because it is rude. I am the monster that frightens monsters." Jin shook his head slowly. "Your Majesty, may I tell you what I actually see?" The Queen's lights shifted to orange. Confusion. "Speak then, before the fear sets in and you run like all the others." "I see a queen who has carried her people through 2 centuries of isolation and pain. Every scar on your plating tells a story of protection, of putting yourself between danger and those you love. That's not hideous. That's beautiful. You cannot possibly. I see a crown of sensory horns that is more complex than any other because you experience the world more deeply than others do. Those broken places that healed. They show that you survived things that should have killed you. That's not something to hide. That's something to honor." Jin gestured to the throne room around them. His voice grew stronger. "Your people paint with light. They compose music that can make stars seem deaf in comparison. They build cities that look like art. They create philosophy and poetry. They value emotional honesty above all else. And you are the queen of these people. How could you be anything but beautiful?" The chamber erupted in gasps. Queen's lights began shifting rapidly through colors. Orange, yellow, purple, green. Colors flickering so fast it created a strobe effect. "I am hideous, human," her voice broke. "Everyone knows it. Say what you truly mean. Do not lie to spare my feelings." Jin only smiled. The expression was genuine, warm, completely without fear or pity. "Your Majesty, I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are beautiful." The throne room went absolutely silent. Every stood frozen, their lights dimmed in shock. Queen stared at him. Her mandibles trembled slightly. Her sensory horns bent toward him as if trying to detect deception. Her lights continued their rapid flickering. "You mean it," she whispered. "You actually mean it." "I do." The Queen's lights suddenly exploded into brilliant gold. The color washed over her entire body, so bright that Jin had to squint. Around them, the nobility began making sounds, translated as gasps of amazement. "Gold light," someone said. "The Queen shows gold light." "I have not seen her show that color in 40 years," another voice added. "She is experiencing joy." Queen began to shake. Jin realized with surprise that she was crying, not with human tears, but with sounds that came from deep in her chest, sounds of grief and relief and something that might have been hope. 130 years, she said through the sobs. 130 years of hiding, of wearing veils, of believing that I was too terrible to look upon. And you stand there and smile at me. You call me beautiful. Because you are. The Queen reached out with one massive limb. Jin held very still as she gently touched the side of his face with the tip of one claw. The touch was surprisingly gentle. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you see me differently?" Jin thought about his answer carefully. "Because I'm not looking at you the way the galaxy told me to look. I'm looking at you the way you deserve to be seen. As a person, as a leader, as someone who has survived incredible pain and still chooses to protect and care for her people. That's what beauty is, Your Majesty, not the shape of someone's body but the strength of their spirit. The Queen's lights pulsed gold again, steady now instead of flickering. Around them other began shifting to warmer colors, yellow, orange, pink. The throne room was filling with light. Appeared at Jin's side. Her lights were brilliant gold as well. She spoke, and her words were carried to everyone in the chamber. The Queen has shown gold light. The human has passed the test. He has seen her without fear. He has called her beautiful without hesitation. This has never happened before, never in our history. The chamber erupted in sounds that the translators struggled to process. Joy, disbelief, wonder, hope. Queen stood up from her throne. Standing at her full height, she was enormous. She looked down at Jin, this small, soft human who had somehow seen past everything the galaxy had used to define her. "You have given me something I thought I would never have," she said. "You have given me the experience of being seen, truly seen, not despite my appearance but as I actually am. Thank you for letting me see you, Your Majesty." The Queen's lights pulsed gold again. She turned to address her court. "Contact the Galactic Assembly. Tell them that the Empire is ready to negotiate. Tell them that humanity has proven themselves different from all the others. Tell them that perhaps, finally, we can stop hiding in the darkness." The transmission drones captured everything. The Queen standing tall without her veils. Jin smiling up at her without fear. The throne room filled with gold light for the first time in decades. Across the galaxy, billions watched. And for the first time in 200 years, the people allowed themselves to hope that they might not have to be alone anymore. 3 weeks had passed since the unveiling. Jin had expected to return to human space immediately after, but Queen had requested he stay to help with the preliminary negotiations. He had agreed without hesitation. The capital had changed. Slowly, carefully, other species were beginning to visit. Scientists came to study architecture and biology. Artists came to learn about their music and light painting techniques. Diplomats came to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Not everyone was happy about this. Jin sat in a conference room with Ambassador, who had arrived from the Galactic Assembly 2 days earlier. The older man's face was red with anger. "You've made humanity look weak," said, slamming his hand on the table. "Sympathizing with these creatures, calling their queen beautiful. Do you have any idea how the other species are talking about us?" "I know exactly how they're talking about us," Jin replied calmly. "They're saying humans have the ability to see past appearance, that we value substance over surface. I think that makes us strong, not weak. They're saying we're fools, that we've been manipulated by monsters who hide their true nature." "Have you actually met any since you arrived, Ambassador? Or have you spent all your time in your ship, refusing to come out?" His face grew redder. "I have no need to expose myself to them. I've read the reports. I've seen the images. They are exactly what they appear to be." "And what's that?" "Different, wrong, not like us." Jin stood up slowly. "Ambassador, with all due respect, I think you should leave. You're not here to negotiate in good faith. You're here to sabotage this because it frightens you." "How dare you?" "I dare because I've seen what's possible when we stop letting fear make our decisions. The Queen has invited you to a private dinner tonight. I suggest you accept. Actually meet the people you're so quick to judge." Stormed out of the room. Jin sat back down and rubbed his eyes. He was tired. The past 3 weeks had been intense, filled with meetings and cultural exchanges and the constant pressure of being the human who had changed everything. His communicator buzzed. A message from "The Queen requests your presence in her private gardens. Come alone." Jin made his way through the palace corridors. He had learned the route to gardens well over the past weeks. It had become a place where they could talk freely, away from the politics and cameras. The gardens were unlike anything on Earth. Plants that glowed in every color imaginable grew in careful arrangements. Water features created music as the liquid flowed through specially shaped stones. The air smelled like something between flowers and rain. Sat on a bench designed for her size, her sensory horns moving slowly as she tracked the scents in the garden. Her lights were a peaceful blue-green. She no longer wore veils, not even when alone. "Jin," she said as he approached, "thank you for coming." "Always." He sat on a smaller bench across from her. "How are you feeling?" "Overwhelmed, hopeful, terrified." Her lights shifted through colors as she named each emotion. "All at once. I have lived in isolation for so long. Now suddenly the galaxy wants to visit, to trade, to learn from us. It is what I always dreamed of, but now that it is happening, I find myself afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That it will not last. That once the novelty wears off, they will remember that they find us ugly and frightening. That this is temporary." Jin leaned forward. "Your Majesty, may I ask you something personal?" "You may call me when we are alone. And yes, ask. When I called you beautiful that day, did you believe me? Or did you think I was being political?" Lights flickered. "Honestly, I thought you were either lying to be kind, or you were somehow seeing me differently than I truly am. I could not understand how you looked at me and saw beauty. Do you believe me now?" She was quiet for a long moment. Her sensory horns bent toward him, and he had learned this meant she was focusing all her attention on something. "I am beginning to," she said softly. "You have had many chances to take back those words, to admit they were exaggeration, but you have not. You speak to me as if I am just a person, not a monster to be feared or a curiosity to be studied. Just. That's because that's what you are. Just, who happens to also be a wise leader and someone with excellent taste in garden design." Lights shifted to gold, the color she showed when she was happy. "You always know what to say to make me feel less afraid." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. A small creature that looked like a combination of a bird and a fish flew past, leaving a trail of pink light behind it. "I received a concerning report today," said eventually. "There are factions within my own military who oppose the opening of our borders. They believe we are making ourselves vulnerable, that the galaxy will take advantage of our hospitality." "Are they planning something?" "I do not know. High Commander Bora leads them. She lost family in the early contact wars 200 years ago. She has never forgiven the other species for what they did to us." Jin frowned. "I understand her pain, but we can't let old wounds stop us from moving forward." "No, but we also cannot ignore the risk that she may be right. What if we open our borders and it leads to more death? What if my people suffer because I was too desperate to be accepted?" Jin used her name deliberately. "You're not desperate to be accepted. You're brave enough to try again after centuries of rejection. There's a difference." Her lights pulsed gold again, but dimmer this time. "I hope you are right." A sound echoed through the garden. Alarms, soft but urgent, stood up immediately, her massive form moving with surprising speed. "That is the security alert. Something is wrong." They rushed through the palace corridors together. Others were moving in the same direction, toward the main conference hall where the peace treaty signing was scheduled for tomorrow. As they got closer, Jin could smell something burning. The conference hall was in chaos. Smoke poured from several locations. Security personnel were evacuating delegates from multiple species. Appeared through the smoke, her lights flashing red. "Bombs," she said quickly. "Small charges placed throughout the building. We found them before they could cause major damage, but this was a warning." "A warning of what?" demanded. "That there are those who do not want peace." A new voice spoke. High Commander Bora stepped out of the smoke. She was large even for a covered in military markings. "Both and other species. They work together to plant these devices." "Together," Jin repeated. "You mean?" I mean that isolationists and assembly warmongers have formed an alliance. They intend to sabotage the peace treaty. This was just the beginning. Slights turned deep red. Anger. Find them, all of them. I want them arrested immediately. We are trying, Your Majesty, but they knew our security protocols. They had inside information. This was carefully planned. Jin's communicator buzzed. Ambassador's face appeared on the screen. Jin, where are you? I'm hearing reports of an attack. We're safe for now, but yes, there was an incident. His expression was hard to read. I'm returning to my ship. I suggest you do the same. This peace process is too dangerous. No, if we run now, we prove that fear wins. Don't be a fool, these creatures. These people are our allies now, and I'm not abandoning them. Jin ended the call. He turned to find watching him, her lights shifting between red and gold. You could leave, she said. Return to human space where it is safe. No one would blame you. I'm not leaving. Why not? This is not your fight. Yes, it is. Jin moved closer, looking up at her. You took a chance on humanity when you had every reason not to. You let me see you when you had spent a lifetime hiding. You trusted me when trust had always led to pain before. How could I leave now? Lights stabilized on gold. She reached out and gently touched his shoulder with one claw, the gesture careful and affectionate. Then we face this together, she said, whatever comes next. Over the next hours, they worked with security to identify the conspirators. It became clear that the plot went deeper than anyone had suspected. Members of both and assembly militaries were involved. Their plan was to create an incident during the treaty signing that would make peace impossible. By evening, they had arrested most of the conspirators, but Bora brought troubling news. We have not found all of them, and intelligence suggests they are planning something during tomorrow's ceremony, something that will force both sides to respond with violence. Stood at the window of her planning room looking out over the city. Her lights were dim purple. Worry. Should we cancel the signing? Asked. If we cancel, they win, Jin said. They prove that fear is stronger than hope. If we proceed and people die, they also win, Bora countered. They prove that peace is impossible. Turned from the window. Then we proceed, but carefully, triple security. Scan every delegate, every device, every corner of that room. And Jin. Yes. Stay close to me tomorrow. If they are targeting anyone, it will be us. The human and the monster queen who dared to be seen. I'll be right beside you. That night Jin couldn't sleep. He stood in his quarters, watching the city lights pulse in the darkness. Somewhere out there, people were planning violence, planning to destroy what had been built. But also out there, and humans walked together through markets. Scientists shared research. Artists created new works that blended styles. Children of different species played together without knowing they were supposed to be afraid of each other. Tomorrow would determine which version of the future would win. The ceremony hall was filled to capacity. Delegates from 30 different species sat in careful arrangements. Camera drones hovered everywhere, broadcasting to billions across the galaxy. Security personnel lined every wall, scanning continuously for threats. Jin stood beside Queen on the raised platform. She wore no veils, her full appearance visible to everyone. Her lights pulsed a steady gold, though he could see hints of blue anxiety flickering beneath. Are you ready? He asked quietly. No, she admitted, but we proceed anyway. The ceremony began. One by one, representatives from each species approached to sign the preliminary peace accord. The ambassador signed with her 4 hands. The Delphian representative used a sonic signature that echoed through the hall. Each signature was a small step toward something the galaxy had never seen before. Ambassador approached when it was humanity's turn. His expression was carefully neutral. He signed the document without comment, then returned to his seat without looking at. Queen was the last to sign. She rose to her full height and several delegates instinctively leaned back. She noticed, and Jin saw her lights flicker toward blue. He touched her plating gently, a reminder that he was there. Her lights steadied back to gold. She approached the document and signed with elaborate strokes, her name flowing across the page in beautiful script. The hall erupted in polite applause, but Jin felt tense. This was when the conspirators would strike, when everyone's attention was focused on the signing. It happened fast. Explosions rocked the hall from multiple directions, not enough to destroy the building, but enough to cause panic. Delegates screamed and ran for exits. Security personnel tried to maintain order, but chaos was spreading. Through the smoke, Jin saw armed figures entering the hall, both and other species, wearing matching insignia. The conspirators were making their move. "Protect the Queen's voice cut through the confusion, but wasn't moving toward safety. She was moving toward the delegates, her massive form placing itself between the armed conspirators and the terrified ambassadors. "Get behind me," she commanded, "all of you." A human delegate stumbled, caught them with surprising gentleness and pushed them toward the secure area. Energy weapons fire lit up the hall. One shot hits plating, leaving a black mark but not penetrating. Her natural armor was holding. Jin ran toward a group of wounded delegates. A young was pinned under fallen debris. He started pulling at the rubble, ignoring the danger around him. "Help me," he called to a security officer. Together they freed the injured ambassador. More explosions. The hall's structural supports were failing. Pieces of the ceiling began to fall. "Everyone out," Bora commanded. "Controlled evacuation now." But the exits were blocked by conspirators. They weren't trying to kill anyone, Jin realized. They were trying to trap everyone inside, force both sides into a confrontation that would end any chance of peace. "This way," gestured toward a service corridor. She organized delegates into groups, sending them toward safety. A large piece of ceiling broke free directly above a group of human delegates. Threw herself forward, her massive body taking the impact. The debris crashed against her plating with a sound like thunder. She held steady, her 4 legs braced against the floor. "Go," she roared, "I will hold it." The humans scrambled to safety. Jin ran back toward. "Your Majesty, you need to let go. That support will crush you." "Not until everyone is safe." More delegates ran past, and humans working together to guide people to safety. Species that had been strangers minutes ago were now protecting each other. Finally, the last delegate cleared the danger zone, let go and rolled aside as the debris crashed down. She was breathing hard, her lights flickering through multiple colors. "Are you hurt?" Jin checked her plating for cracks. "I am fine, but we are not done yet." The service corridor led to a secondary chamber, but as they entered, Jin realized they had a problem. The corridor had collapsed behind them. They were cut off from the main escape routes. Trapped with them were about 20 delegates from various species and a handful of security personnel. And ahead, the sound of more explosions suggested the conspirators were systematically destroying the building. "We need another way out," Bora said, scanning the chamber. "There." She pointed to a maintenance shaft. "It leads to the lower levels. From there we can reach the emergency transport station." "That shaft is narrow," observed. "The Queen cannot fit." Everyone turned to look at. She stood silent, her lights dimming. "Then I will find another route," she said. "The rest of you go." "No," Jin stepped forward. "We're not splitting up. There has to be another way." "There is not time to search for one. The building is failing. You must all leave now." A section of wall collapsed. They were running out of time. "I'm not leaving you," Jin said firmly. "That's final." Lights shifted through several colors rapidly. "You foolish human. I'm not worth dying for." "Yes, you are. I am just one." "You're not just anything. You're, and I'm not leaving." Around them, other delegates were nodding. The young that Jin had freed spoke up. "The human is right. We leave together or not at all." "Agreed," said a Delphian ambassador. Even Ambassador, dusty and disheveled, stepped forward. "I may not understand your people, but I understand loyalty. The human stays, we all stay." Bora made a frustrated sound. "You are all going to die for sentiment." "No," was studying the shaft opening. "We make it wider. There are tools in the emergency station here. We can cut the opening larger." They worked together, multiple species using whatever tools they could find. Energy cutters, physical force, strength combined with human engineering knowledge. The opening slowly grew wider. More of the building collapsed around them. Dust filled the air, but they kept working. Finally, the opening was large enough. Tested it carefully, her massive form squeezing through with difficulty but managing. They descended through the maintenance system, leading the way because her body lights provided illumination. Behind her, delegates of different species helped each other through difficult sections. The young who couldn't use her injured limbs was carried by a soldier. A human helped an elder navigate a steep drop. They emerged in the lower transport station, just as the upper levels of the building began complete structural failure. The sound was like the planet itself groaning. Emergency shuttles waited. They packed everyone aboard, not caring about normal species separation protocols. Bodies pressed together, and human and Endelphian, all breathing hard and covered in dust. As the shuttles lifted away, they watched the ceremonial hall collapse completely. The building that was supposed to host the new era of peace was now rubble. The shuttle landed in a secure zone. Medical personnel rushed to treat the injured. Jin found himself sitting on the ground, suddenly exhausted. His hands were shaking. Sat down beside him, carefully keeping her mass from crushing anything. "You should have left me," she said quietly. "No, I shouldn't have." "You could have died." "So could you. That's not a reason to abandon someone." Her lights pulsed through colors. "I have never had anyone refuse to leave me behind before. Even my own people in dangerous situations. It is understood that I am acceptable loss because I am large and strong, that I should be the one to sacrifice. That's not fair to you." "It is practical. It's lonely." Went very still, then her lights shifted to deep gold. "Yes, it is very lonely." They sat together in silence. Around them, medical personnel worked. Delegates were being checked for injuries and interviewed by security. The conspirators had been captured during the evacuation. Their plan had failed. Approached, her plating scorched but otherwise intact. "The damage report is complete. The ceremonial hall is destroyed. 3 minor injuries, no deaths. The conspirators are in custody, both and non." "What will happen to them?" Jin asked. "They will be tried," said, "both by law and Galactic Assembly law. Their attempt to destroy peace through violence has failed." "Has it?" Jin gestured to the rubble. "They did destroy the signing ceremony." "They destroyed a building," corrected. "But look," she pointed across the landing zone. Jin looked. What he saw made something warm bloom in his chest. Medics were treating injured humans. Human engineers were helping security personnel assess damage. The young ambassador was being carried by a soldier who was speaking gently to her in her own language. Ambassador was helping coordinate rescue efforts, working directly with commanders without hesitation. "They wanted to prove that we cannot work together," said. "That fear and hatred would win. But when the crisis came, everyone chose to help each other. Species that have never met before protected each other. Strangers became allies." Over the next hours, the story spread across the galaxy. Not the story of the destroyed hall, but the story of what happened during the evacuation. Images of Queen shielding human delegates with her own body. Video of Jin treating wounded with steady hands. Footage of delegates from 30 species working together to escape, refusing to leave anyone behind. The conspiracy had failed, but more than that, it had proven the opposite of what the conspirators intended. It had proven that peace was possible, that beings from different worlds could choose to see each other as people worth saving. 6 months later, the official treaty was signed, not in a grand hall but in a simple garden, the same garden wherein Jin had shared their first real conversation. Representatives from every galactic assembly species attended. The Empire officially joined the assembly. Borders that had been closed for 2 centuries opened. Trade routes were established. Cultural exchange programs began. Scientists collaborated on projects that required both understanding of bioluminescence and human engineering. Artists created works that blended styles in ways no one had imagined. And throughout it all, there was one image that became a symbol of the new era. A picture taken during the evacuation. Queen, covered in dust and scorch marks, standing tall without her veils, and beside her, small and soft and human, Jin with his hand resting gently on her plating, both of them looking at something off camera, both of them smiling. The caption in multiple languages, "Beauty recognized." Jin stayed on as permanent human ambassador to the. His quarters in the palace became a second home. He and met regularly, their friendship deepening into something that neither had expected but both treasured. One evening, they sat in her gardens watching bioluminescent flowers bloom. Its lights were a peaceful blue-green. "Jin," she said, "do you ever regret speaking those words in the throne room, the words that changed everything?" He thought about it. He thought about the work that still needed to be done, the prejudices that still existed, the long road ahead toward true understanding between species. Then he thought about the children who no longer had to hide, the humans who had learned to see beauty in new forms, the galaxy that was slowly, carefully, learning to look past appearance. He thought about who no longer wore veils, who stood tall and unafraid, who had learned that being seen could be a gift rather than a curse. "Your Majesty," he said with a smile, "I only regret that it took the galaxy so long to see what was always there." Its lights glowed warm gold, the color of joy, the color of hope, the color of someone who had spent a lifetime being called a monster and had finally learned that beauty had been there all along, waiting to be seen by someone brave enough to look.